Do you remember the Thanksgiving recipes only your grandparents knew? They filled every kitchen with warmth, patience, and pride. When did we stop making the meals that made the holidays feel like home? Oyster dressing was the taste of tradition meeting the tide. It began with breadcrumbs softened in broth, folded together with chopped celery, onion, butter, and those unmistakable oysters, briny, soft, and rich with the flavor of the sea. For families living along the coast, it was not just a dish, but a symbol of home and harvest. Grandmothers shucked fresh oysters when they could, but canned ones worked just as well when times were lean. The smell of butter and salt filled the kitchen as the pan baked, turning golden on top and tender underneath. Every bite brought a mix of comfort and ocean air, the land and the water meeting in one spoonful. It was old-fashioned, yes, but not outdated, the kind of food that carried memory in every taste. On Thanksgiving, when the turkey rested and the table filled, oyster dressing was a quiet reminder of roots and resourcefulness. It was a coastal heirloom, passed from mother to daughter, served with pride and gratitude for what the earth and sea could still give. Corn pudding casserole was the soft golden heart of Southern Thanksgivings. It began with fresh corn shaved from the cob or a can opened with care, mixed with eggs, butter, milk, and a touch of sugar. The batter was poured into a greased dish and baked until it quivered like custard in the middle and browned just enough at the edges. It smelled like warmth itself, buttery, sweet, and faintly smoky if it caught just right in the oven. Grandmothers never measured, only stirred until it felt right. It was creamy enough to spoon, solid enough to slice, and so beloved that it rarely made it to leftovers. For families that knew how to make much from little, this dish was proof that simple ingredients could taste extraordinary. It was soft, rich, and humble, food that spoke of gratitude, patience, and love baked slow. The top gleamed like gold, and when the spoon broke through, steam rose like a sigh of relief. Each bite carried the sweetness of summer corn remembered in winter, the promise of sunlight reborn at the table. In its quiet way, corn pudding said everything, that love, when baked slowly, could feed both hunger and heart. Jello salad with cottage cheese was the bright, jiggling joy of mid-century Thanksgivings. It shone in every shade, lime, strawberry, or orange, layered with whipped topping, crushed pineapple, and soft curds of cottage cheese. To modernize, it might seem strange, but to those who grew up with it, it was a treat of elegance and creativity. Grandmothers poured it into ring molds and let it chill overnight, pulling it out like a gem the next day. The first slice always got a laugh. The second got silence as sweetness met cream. It was cool, tangy, and full of nostalgia, the edible memory of post-war optimism, of women proud to make beauty from boxes and cans. Jello salad was more than a side dish. It was art in pastel form, a symbol of home, pride, and the charm of doing your best with what you had. Each wobble reflected the effort and pride that built every meal from the ground up. It tasted of sugar, fruit, and hope, the sweetness of an era that believed anything could be made brighter with color and care. Sweet potato soufflé was dessert disguised as a side dish, a cloud of comfort rising from the oven. Whipped sweet potatoes met eggs, brown sugar, butter, and vanilla, beaten until smooth and poured into a glass dish. The top puffed gently as it baked, golden and trembling like a promise. Sometimes it wore a crown of marshmallows, other times a crumbly pecan topping, but always it brought warmth to the table. It was light enough to float, sweet enough to satisfy, and rich enough to feel like love made visible. Grandmothers took pride in their soufflés, folding in air with patience and prayer, watching it rise and hoping it would not fall before dinner. Every bite was memory, soft, spiced, and glowing with care. It was more than food. It was the essence of family gathered close, giving thanks with every mouthful. When it came to the table, heads turned and hearts softened. The first spoonful melted on the tongue, like autumn itself made edible. Even after the plates were cleared, its scent lingered, a whisper of warmth, a promise of return. Celery stuffed with pimento cheese was crisp, cool, and quietly sophisticated in its simplicity. It was always there on the relish tray, lined up beside pickles and olives, waiting for guests to arrive. The celery snapped bright and green, while the cheese, sharp, creamy, and orange as sunset, filled each groove perfectly. Pimento cheese was made by hand in those days, grated cheddar mixed with mayonnaise and chopped peppers until it spread smooth. It was humble food turned handsome, a bite-sized bridge between generations. Children reached for it first, then the grown-ups followed, laughing at how something so plain could taste so right. It was the flavor of Southern hospitality. No fuss, no waste, just care and balance. Stuffed celery may have faded from modern tables, but in memory it still crunches fresh, reminding us that the smallest things often hold the most heart. On trays wrapped in plastic or set on crystal dishes, it shone bright and proud. It was the appetizer that started conversations and the taste that lingered long after. A single bite could summon whole holidays, laughter, chatter, and the kindness that began every gathering. Giblet gravy was the truest act of Thanksgiving patience. Made from the bird's neck, heart, and gizzard, it simmered slowly in a pot beside the roasting pan, filling the kitchen with the deep, savory scent of effort rewarded. The giblets were chopped fine, folded into thickened broth, and seasoned with black pepper and love. It was a recipe learned by sight, not by book. When the spoon coated the back just so, it was done. Grandmothers ladled it over dressing, potatoes, or biscuits, knowing it could turn even dry turkey into comfort. It was the taste of respect for every part of the bird, of gratitude that nothing was wasted. Rich, smooth, and soulful, giblet gravy wasn't just a condiment. It was Thanksgiving's heartbeat, the flavor that tied every dish together. The pot simmered all morning, quietly transforming scraps into silk. Each spoonful carried the story of hands that refused to waste, of cooks who believed flavor was earned through time. Even when the table fell silent, the warmth of that gravy spoke for everyone. Cornbread dressing with sage was the backbone of Southern Thanksgivings. Crumbled cornbread mixed with onions, celery, eggs, and fragrant sage baked into something more sacred than side dish. It was soft, yet firm, moist, yet golden. Every bite alive with the warmth of herbs and butter. No boxed mix could ever compare. It came from cast iron, from hands that had known labor and grace in equal measure. The scent of sage drifted through the house, calling everyone to the table before the bell even rang. Each forkful tasted of time, of love passed through generations. It was a recipe you could not rush. It asked for attention, and it gave back tenfold in comfort. Some cooks added a splash of broth from the turkey pan. Others stirred in crumbled biscuits or a handful of chopped eggs, each family leaving its own signature on the sacred dish. It was a meal that gathered memories as easily as it gathered people. The sound of spoons scraping the pan was its own kind of blessing. Cornbread dressing was more than food. It was a story baked into every crumb, written by grandmothers who knew that the heart of Thanksgiving was found in the humblest pan. Mincemeat pie was a relic of old-world comfort, dense with fruit, spice, and memory. Dried apples, raisins, currants, and citrus peel mingled with warm cinnamon, nutmeg, and the richness of suet. The filling was sticky, dark, and glistening, a taste of history on a fork. Grandmothers simmered it for hours before spooning it into flaky crusts, sealing the edges with a press of their fingers. When it baked, the scent of cloves filled the whole house, mingling with the hum of conversation. Every slice was a reminder of winters gone by, of holidays when sugar was scarce and flavor was treasure. Some families used a splash of apple cider or brandy, others just a little molasses to deepen the color. It was heavy with comfort and lightened by memory. When served warm with a scoop of ice cream or a dollop of whipped cream, it turned into something transcendent, old-fashioned joy that tasted like time itself. Mincemeat pie was not flashy, but it was loyal. A dish that returned year after year, bringing with it the old songs, old stories, and the sweetness of survival. Cranberry relish mold shimmered like stained glass on the holiday table. Made from crushed cranberries, orange zest, sugar, and gelatin, it was the jewel among casseroles and gravies. Grandmothers poured it into ring molds, chilled it overnight, and unmolded it onto plates lined with lettuce leaves. It jiggled softly under the light, tart and refreshing against the heavier foods around it. Each bite was cool and bright, the tang of citrus cutting through the richness of the feast. It was the balance that Thanksgiving needed, the sparkle to the savory, the pop to the plain. Some versions added chopped walnuts or bits of pineapple, making it both textured and vibrant. Children loved to poke it with their forks just to see it wobble, while grown-ups savored its clean taste between bites of turkey and stuffing. Though time has moved on, the memory of that red, glimmering ring still lingers, its flavor as sharp and joyful as the laughter that once surrounded it. Ambrosia salad was sunshine in a bowl, sweet and simple as childhood. Canned fruit cocktail, shredded coconut, and whipped cream were folded together with care, then chilled until soft and cool. It was dessert pretending to be a side dish, and no one complained. The colors gleamed, orange, pink, white, like confetti and cream. Grandmothers served it with pride, knowing it would disappear faster than anything else. Each spoonful tasted of celebration, of simpler joys and sweeter days. Ambrosia was the bridge between generations, proof that comfort could come from a can if seasoned with love. Some added mini marshmallows for extra sweetness. Others stirred in cherries or pecans to make it fancy. It was the one dish that children could make without help, and they did, giggling while sneaking bites from the bowl. It was the sweetness after the storm of dishes and chatter, the final sigh of contentment after the feast. Tomato aspic was elegance preserved in gelatin, the kind of dish that told guests you had class and patience. It began with tomato juice simmered with vinegar, lemon, and a dash of Worcestershire, poured through a sieve to catch every seed and skin. Then came the gelatin, melted and stirred until the mixture thickened, glossy and fragrant with spice. Chopped celery or olives might be folded in before it was poured into a ring mold and chilled overnight. In the morning, it emerged firm and shining, a crimson wreath that glowed like stained glass. Some grandmothers served it with a dollop of mayonnaise or a scatter of parsley. Others kept it plain, proud of its smooth perfection. It was cool, savory, and slightly tangy, a salad dressed in dignity. The first slice wobbled but held its shape, releasing the memory of a world that valued care in presentation as much as taste. Tomato aspic may seem strange now, but once it was the height of refinement, proof that creativity could make even tomatoes feel like a celebration. Brown sugar-glazed carrots were the quiet stars of the holiday plate, simple but shimmering with sweetness. Peeled carrots boiled soft in salted water, then drained and tossed in butter until slick and golden. A scoop of brown sugar followed, melting into a sticky glaze that coated each slice like glass. The scent of caramel filled the kitchen, warm and buttery with a whisper of salt. Sometimes a drizzle of honey or a pinch of cinnamon joined in, deepening the flavor without stealing its simplicity. Children loved them for their sweetness, adults for their nostalgia. They gleamed under the dining room light, modest but proud, sitting between the grander dishes as a reminder that goodness did not need grandeur. They were affordable, humble, and always finished first. Grandmothers never called them fancy, but the way the sugar melted into the butter made them taste like love disguised as thrift. Homemade Parker House rolls were softness made visible, buttery crescents that could make a whole kitchen smell like hope. The dough was rich with milk and yeast, kneaded until smooth and elastic, then left to rise under a clean towel while conversation hummed in the background. Each roll was folded gently, brushed with melted butter, and baked until golden brown. The tops shone like sunlight on fresh wood. When they came out of the oven, steam curled into the air, sweet, warm, and comforting as a hug. Grandmothers guarded their recipes, measuring by feel, trusting their hands more than any written page. A basket of these rolls sat on every table, their scent mingling with the turkey and gravy, inviting everyone to reach in before grace was said. They were the quiet foundation of the meal, soft enough to hold memory and strong enough to bind a family together. Apple raisin bread stuffing was autumn folded into a bowl. The sweetness of fruit, the scent of spice, and the heartiness of bread all mingled into one. Cubes of stale loaf soaked up butter and broth, while diced apples and plump raisins added contrast and cheer. The mixture was seasoned with sage and nutmeg, sometimes a hint of clove, and baked until golden and fragrant. Each forkful was soft, slightly crisp at the edges, sweet yet savory. It was food that carried warmth and memory, reminding every table of harvests and hearths. Grandmothers made it when they wanted something both thrifty and festive, a recipe that stretched what they had into something worthy of gratitude. It was stuffing that told a story of resourcefulness and celebration at once. Simple ingredients raised to their highest calling by patience, love, and an oven glowing steady through the afternoon. Creamed onions were the quiet luxury of old Thanksgivings, tiny pearl onions boiled until tender, then bathed in a rich white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk. The sauce turned smooth and thick, coating the onions like silk. It smelled faintly sweet, nutty from the butter, comforting in its simplicity. This dish never shouted for attention. It whispered elegance, the kind that came from time rather than expense. Grandmothers stirred it slow, never rushing the sauce, making sure each onion gleamed. Some sprinkled a bit of nutmeg or paprika on top before serving. Others left it pale and pure. On crowded tables full of noise, creamed onions offered stillness, a bite of calm amid the celebration. They were soft, warm, and patient, just like the hands that made them. The pot stayed on the back burner long after dinner, waiting for one more helping, one more taste of quiet comfort. Even after the plates were cleared and the laughter faded, their creamy scent lingered, a gentle reminder that beauty often hides in the simplest things. Jellied cranberry sauce in its homemade form was the holiday jewel before cans took over. Fresh cranberries boiled with sugar and orange peel until they popped, their tartness turning to a ruby sweetness that caught the light. The warm syrup was poured into ring molds, chilled overnight, and released with a glossy shine. Each slice held its shape but quivered with life, tart and bright enough to cut through the heaviest meal. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a labor of patience, love, and tradition. Every grandmother had her secret ratio of sugar to berries, each believing hers struck the perfect balance. Homemade jellied cranberry sauce was more than garnish. It was artistry and memory combined, a crimson echo of a time when effort was its own reward. Some families added crushed pineapple or a hint of clove, turning a side dish into signature history. It wasn't just food, it was a tradition set in ruby glass, alive with every slice. Mashed turnips with butter were the humble cousins to mashed potatoes, a little sharper, a little braver. Peeled and boiled until soft, then mashed with butter, salt, and a touch of cream, they carried a faint peppery bite that made the tongue take notice. The scent was earthy, honest, and full of history. Grandmothers served them as a balancing act, a reminder that not all comfort needed to be mild. Turnips were cheap, but they tasted like care, warm, soft, and grounded. When mixed half and half with potatoes, they turned gentler, but on their own they stood proud. Every spoonful felt like old wisdom, the kind that valued flavor born from work. They spoke of lean years and rich gratitude, of tables that fed more mouths than money should allow. And somehow, in their simplicity, mashed turnips held a power far greater than their cost. They carried pride. Giblet stuffing bread pudding was thrift turned into triumph. Leftover bread, torn by hand, soaked in broth, and mixed with chopped giblets, onions, and herbs until rich and savory. It baked dense and golden, crisp at the edges, and tender in the middle. The smell was pure nostalgia, poultry, butter, and thyme. This was the dish that proved nothing was wasted, that flavor could come from the humblest parts. Every bite told of resourcefulness, of making do and making it good. It was hearty, generous, and full of quiet pride. The gravy clung to it perfectly, soaking into its soft heart while the crust stayed crisp. Families learned patience from dishes like this and gratitude too. In every kitchen where it was made, it said the same thing without words, that waste was shame and care was abundance. Baked apples with cinnamon and raisins were dessert before pie became tradition. Apples were cored and stuffed with brown sugar, butter, and raisins, then baked until their skins split and their scent filled the house. The sauce at the bottom of the dish was gold. Caramel and spice melted together. Each apple collapsed into sweetness, spoon-tender and shining. Grandmothers made them for children and guests alike. Simple joy born from orchard fruit and pantry staples. It was the taste of warmth, of gratitude, of love served with a spoon. The air filled with cinnamon. The walls held the smell long after the meal was gone. Every bite was comfort, every serving a reminder that dessert did not need wealth, only imagination and care. It was sweetness earned by patience, humble and beautiful in its own quiet way. Each apple gleamed like a treasure, soft and fragrant, its juices catching the light in the baking dish. They were served steaming hot with a little cream or cold from the icebox the next day, both perfect in their own right. Even the simplest fruit became something sacred under such tender care, proof that the best flavors come from time, warmth, and love shared across generations. Celery root and apple slaw was the crisp, clean side that brought freshness to the table. Shredded celery root met tart apple, tossed in a dressing of vinegar, mustard, and a hint of sugar. The crunch was perfect, the flavor sharp and cool against heavier dishes. It was rustic but refined, proof that even the simplest produce could feel special. Grandmothers made it with care, balancing each flavor until harmony was achieved. It was the taste of simplicity done right, honest, bright, and full of quiet grace. Some versions used sour cream or mayonnaise for creaminess, others left it clear and sharp. Served cold, it refreshed the tongue between bites of stuffing and gravy, a hidden gem amid the feast. It reminded everyone that freshness had a place beside tradition, that even amid abundance, balance mattered. Every bite carried a whisper of the harvest, the tang of fall air, and the lightness that heavy meals craved. The bowl gleamed with pale greens and whites, a humble beauty beside golden casseroles and roasts. It was the unsung hero of Thanksgiving, crisp, clean, and quietly unforgettable. Oven-baked candied yams were the dessert disguised as a side dish, a golden, bubbling pan of sweetness that smelled like comfort itself. Peeled sweet potatoes were sliced thick, arranged neatly, and covered in a rich syrup of brown sugar, butter, and a touch of cinnamon. As they baked, the syrup thickened into caramel, soaking into every piece until they glowed amber under the oven light. Near the end, marshmallows were scattered across the top and left to melt into soft clouds of golden cream. Children watched from the kitchen doorway, waiting for the moment the top turned brown and sticky. The smell alone could bring everyone to the table before the turkey was carved. It was sugary, tender, and warm, proof that sweetness could come from soil and patience. Grandmothers made them every year without fail, knowing they were more than food. They were tradition itself, shining beneath the holiday lights. Each bite tasted of gratitude, of comfort earned, of generations gathered in one spoonful. The syrup clung to spoons and lips, a sweetness that refused to fade. The dish came out bubbling, alive with sugar and love, its glow as much a memory as a flavor. Mock cherry pie was invention baked into beauty, born from times when cherries were rare or too costly. Cranberries and raisins took their place, stewed with sugar and lemon until they glistened red like jewels. The filling was tart and deep, its texture thick and glossy, clinging to the fork with substance. Grandmothers called it mock, but there was nothing false about its comfort. The scent of spice and fruit filled the air as it baked, wrapping the home in warmth that money could not buy. The crust was flaky, sometimes brushed with milk or sprinkled with sugar for shine. When sliced, it oozed like memory, tangy, sweet, and utterly familiar. It was a dessert that proved resourcefulness could taste just as rich as luxury. Each forkful carried quiet pride, a testament to women who made plenty from little and never let scarcity dim celebration. The bright red filling shimmered under lamplight, a reflection of ingenuity and endurance. Served warm with cream, it felt like abundance reborn, proof that joy was never measured in cost but in care. Turkey giblet loaf was the heart of thrift and love, wrapped into one humble dish. Leftover turkey meat, minced giblets, breadcrumbs, and eggs came together into a loaf that baked firm and fragrant. It was simple food, dense with flavor and meaning, stretching what was left into another meal for hungry mouths. Grandmothers mixed it by hand, trusting feel over measurement, shaping it smooth before setting it to bake in a greased pan. The smell that rose from the oven was savory and grounding, meat, herbs, and warmth filling every corner. Served with gravy or sliced cold for sandwiches, it carried the memory of holiday abundance into the days after. It was practicality turned tender, every slice a reminder that care could transform scraps into comfort. Each loaf was a lesson in gratitude, that nothing was wasted, and everything had worth when touched by love. The edges browned just right, and when sliced, the loaf revealed its heart, soft, rich, and seasoned with perseverance. It was a dinner that lingered, proof that even the humble could be holy. Lima bean casserole was quiet strength disguised as supper, the kind of dish that fed body and heart. Cooked Lima beans baked in cream sauce with bits of onion and a topping of crushed crackers browned to perfection. The flavor was mellow, buttery, and slightly nutty, with a texture that melted against the tongue. It was warmth in its purest form, simple, filling, and made with love. Grandmothers baked it in Pyrex dishes, the edges bubbling while the top turned crisp and golden. Children might wrinkle their noses at first, but one bite changed everything. It was food that held its own among fancier dishes, unassuming yet unforgettable. Lima bean casserole was comfort measured not in cost, but in care, proof that humble ingredients could hold extraordinary tenderness. The cream thickened just enough to coat every bean, creating a softness that calmed the soul. Each spoonful was steady, soothing, and kind, food that healed as much as it fed. Potato rolls with honey butter were softness reborn from leftovers. Mashed potatoes folded into dough made each roll impossibly light, moist, and tender. The dough was worked gently, risen twice, and brushed with melted butter until the tops shone. When baked, they filled the home with the smell of warmth, a mixture of yeast, sweetness, and love. The honey butter melted into the rolls, glistening in the cracks as families reached for seconds before the first basket was empty. Grandmothers made them by memory, kneading until the dough felt right. It was thrift transformed into grace, the proof that yesterday's leftovers could become tomorrow's blessing. Each bite was soft, sweet, and fleeting, yet the memory of it lasted long after the meal was gone. These rolls carried the rhythm of care: rise, rest, bake, serve, the steady heartbeat of home kitchens. When spread with honey butter that melted into every pore, they tasted like comfort itself, sweetened by time and touch. Homemade cranberry orange bread was Thanksgiving baked into a loaf, tart, fragrant, and glowing with color. Fresh cranberries burst like jewels in the batter, their sharpness balanced by the sweetness of orange zest. As it baked, the kitchen filled with a scent that felt both festive and familiar. Grandmothers often made it days before the feast, letting it rest so the flavors deepened and mingled. Slices were served with tea in the morning or alongside dessert after dinner. The crust was golden, the inside soft and speckled pink, each bite a harmony of citrus and berry. It was a bread that spoke of patience, tradition, and anticipation, proof that the simplest ingredients could feel like a gift. Each slice carried a memory of mornings before the feast, of hands dusted with flour and laughter in the air. It was the kind of recipe that waited quietly on the counter, fragrant with promise. Pumpkin chiffon pie was the airy dream of mid-century kitchens, a dessert that floated instead of sat. Canned pumpkin mixed with egg yolks, sugar, and spice before being lightened with whipped egg whites and folded into a ginger snap crust, it was pumpkin pie reimagined, lighter, silkier, and kissed with nostalgia. Grandmothers made it when they wanted elegance without excess, a showpiece that seemed effortless but took skill. Chilled until firm, it sliced like a cloud, cool and creamy against the tongue. Each bite whispered of autumn, cinnamon, nutmeg, and home. It was dessert elevated by care and imagination, a bridge between old tradition and new delight. When served with whipped cream, it glowed beneath the dining room light, delicate and proud. The pie carried the story of a generation that valued beauty made from simplicity. Lightness created not from wealth, but from will. Turkey rice casserole was the quiet encore after the feast. Leftover turkey shredded into a creamy mix of rice, vegetables, and broth, baked until the top browned and the kitchen smelled like gratitude. It was the meal that made sure nothing went to waste, each spoonful carrying yesterday's joy into today. Grandmothers stirred it with care, adding a touch of milk or cheese for richness. It was filling, forgiving, and full of heart. Food meant for togetherness. Every bite tasted of continuity, of warmth extending beyond one day's celebration. It was a bridge between abundance and humility, the unspoken promise that love lingered long after the feast was done. The rice soaked in all the flavors of the season, binding them together into comfort. Families gathered around once more, finding solace in the repetition. The taste of what was, still alive in what remained. Green tomato mincemeat was the flavor of persistence. A pie filling made when gardens had to stretch further. Chopped green tomatoes simmered with apples, raisins, and spice until thick and dark. It smelled like tradition and ingenuity sharing a stove. Sweetened with brown sugar and touched with vinegar, it became the thrifty heart of countless pies. Grandmothers made it in jars, sealing away comfort for the cold months ahead. It was resourcefulness turned delicious, a promise that no season's end went to waste. The mixture shimmered like old amber, rich and aromatic, every spoonful a testament to endurance. Families might not have had cherries or currants, but they had creativity, and that was enough. This was more than dessert. It was preservation, pride, and perseverance baked into sweetness. Maple walnut custard was quiet sophistication, smooth and steady as a hymn. Eggs, milk, and maple syrup whisked together, poured into dishes, and baked in a water bath until barely set. The custard quivered under the spoon, sweet but not loud, its richness balanced by the crunch of toasted walnuts. It was dessert for those who understood subtlety, sweetness that soothed rather than shouted. The flavor lingered, gentle and deep, like a story told softly at the table's end. Grandmothers made it when they wanted something honest, something real. The maple syrup gave warmth, the walnuts gave texture, and together they made peace in a spoon. Served warm or chilled, it reminded everyone that simplicity was the soul of beauty. The taste was steady, timeless, and pure. A dessert that never needed decoration to feel complete. Mock pecan pie was the Depression-era dessert that refused to give up sweetness. When real pecans were too expensive, cooks used oats, breadcrumbs, or crushed crackers instead. Mixed with brown sugar and syrup, the filling baked into a chewy, caramel-like layer that mimicked the flavor and texture of the real thing. The crust was often handmade, rolled thin to save flour, but still tender from lard or shortening. For many, it wasn't just a substitute. It was a small act of defiance against scarcity. Families cut into it proudly, knowing they'd turned less into something that felt like enough. Mock pecan pie was the proof that celebration could exist even when times were hard. Though forgotten today, it once symbolized resilience baked golden brown. Green tomato pies might take your taste buds for a spin, since you might have rarely heard of or tried this pie. In reality, though, when made with summertime spices like cloves and cinnamon, they would take on a very fruity taste similar to apples or rhubarbs. In the 70s, green tomato pies were such a chic and in choice as far as your evening dessert plans went. Combined with their apple-like notes, they were called the apple pies of the summer in that decade. The 1970s had a whole spectrum of food from experimentative train wrecks to simple knockouts. Green tomato pies were somewhere in the middle and did find a fan base, but not one strong enough to last into the new age of today. Spiced pear bread pudding was the kind of dessert that made old recipes feel new again. It began with cubes of stale bread, soaked in milk and eggs until soft, then baked with slices of canned pears, cinnamon, and nutmeg. The pears melted into the pudding, their syrup seeping through every layer to create sweetness that felt natural and deep. Served warm with a drizzle of cream, it tasted like comfort you could hold. It was a dish that made use of leftovers and turned them into something extraordinary. A 1970s virtue wrapped in flavor. Families made it after holidays when the pantry was full of odds and ends, proving again that thrift could still be beautiful. Each spoonful carried the softness of pear, the spice of memory, and the weight of tradition. Spiced pear pudding was not glamorous, but it had heart. It was the taste of home, gently reborn in every bite. Applesauce salad was the kind of dish that could only have been born in a mid-century kitchen, where imagination met gelatin and the line between dessert and side dish blurred completely. Applesauce was stirred together with lemon gelatin, sugar, and a touch of cinnamon, then whipped until light enough to catch the air. It poured smooth and glossy into molds shaped like rings, stars, or festive wreaths, ready for the refrigerator's cool embrace. Once firm, it trembled with every touch, shining like glass and smelling faintly of apple pie. Served beside ham or turkey, it added sweetness that balanced the salt of the main meal. The texture melted on the tongue, silky, creamy, and cool. It looked like fun on a plate, the kind of food that made children grin and guests raise an eyebrow. Some topped it with whipped cream, others added chopped nuts for crunch. However it was served, it brought lightness to heavy holiday tables. Applesauce salad was mid-century whimsy at its finest, bright, strange, and full of heart, a small reminder that joy sometimes came in wobbly form. Tomato aspic was Thanksgiving's strangest star, a savory gelatin molded with tomato juice, onions, and celery. Served chilled and sliced, it was both salad and side, a holdover from when gelatin meant sophistication. Its tangy flavor paired surprisingly well with turkey and dressing, offering brightness amid the richness. Guests either loved it or politely pushed it aside, but it always sparked conversation. In the 1950s, it symbolized elegance, something daring for the dinner table. Housewives followed recipes clipped from magazines, proud of its quivering perfection. Today, it's more curiosity than cuisine, but once it was a badge of culinary ambition. Tomato aspic was a dish of confidence, bold, unusual, and unapologetically of its time. Persimmon pies were something that kids and food conservatives really had to open their minds and hearts to, but once they did, they were on the bandwagon faster than anyone. Persimmons are a really ripe, juicy fruit that are popularly grown in the southern and western parts of America. Places like Oklahoma, Florida, and Iowa had bakeries that would stuff their shelves full of a fragrant batch of these pies, and they sold like hotcakes. Also, they strangely appealed more to 40 to 50-year-olds, so it was the ideal thing to bring for your dad or uncle. Some foods work amazingly well as gifts, and persimmon pies were definitely one of those. Presently, people have a much different idea of what a tasty gift means, and persimmon pies do not fit the bill anymore. Chocolate rum pudding cups were the quiet indulgence of grown-up holidays. Instant chocolate pudding, rich and silky, met a splash of rum extract or, for the brave, the real thing. Topped with whipped cream and shaved chocolate, it felt elegant in its simplicity, proof that luxury could be spooned from a glass. These little desserts appeared at dinner parties and midnight gatherings, served in small cups that looked as stylish as they were easy. The flavor was smooth with just enough warmth to feel sophisticated, a step above childhood chocolate pudding, yet still comforting. In dimly lit rooms filled with laughter and record players humming, pudding cups became a moment of pause, soft, sweet, and quietly daring. They carried the flavor of the decade, modern, a little indulgent, but never complicated. chocolate rum pudding cups reminded people that even in a fast-changing world, pleasure could be instant and timeless at once. Scalloped potatoes with ham bits were a casserole built on love and leftovers, a dish that proved necessity could taste like luxury. Thin potato slices layered with chopped ham, butter, and cream baked slowly in a deep pan until the top turned golden brown. The smell of smoked ham and melting butter filled the whole house, calling everyone to the table before the timer even rang. Inside, the layers stayed soft and creamy, soaking up the richness from the sauce. It was comfort at its most honest, simple, filling, and quietly indulgent. Born in the 1940s when food was stretched and shared, it made the most of scraps that might have gone to waste. Each bite tasted like thrift wrapped in warmth, the kind of meal that asked for seconds every time. It fed families, eased worries, and carried the calm of something dependable. Scalloped potatoes with ham bits were more than a side dish. They were a history lesson baked in cream, still whispering of gratitude with every forkful. Celery and olive relish trays were once the quiet opening act of every Thanksgiving feast. Before the turkey, before the sides, came the cool crunch of celery stuffed with pimento cheese or cream cheese and the briny bite of olives. They offered a balance, freshness, before the richness to come. Housewives prided themselves on arranging them neatly, often on cut glass trays. Children would sneak olives off the plate, pretending not to like them but always coming back for more. It was a simple tradition, but one that marked the beginning of the meal with grace and order. Over time, the relish tray faded, replaced by charcuterie boards and modern appetizers. Yet it remains a symbol of hospitality from a slower, more deliberate age. Celery and olive relish trays were Thanksgiving's crisp, elegant overture. Watergate cakes were another hit dessert in the 1970s, particularly in 1972 when the Watergate scandal occurred. A Watergate cake is a layer cake made of pistachio and often has mousse frosting, although it can contain other ingredients too, like diced pineapple and marshmallows. Despite its questionable political rep, it actually was popular enough in 1975 to increase shortages for pistachios all around Washington. That too near Christmas season, folks were baking. That many of them, but we bet you have never heard of a Watergate cake before. Sadly, it is a forgotten relic gone from tables nowadays. Modern-day Christmas cakes look like lots of ice or vanilla frosting, and the pistachio flavor is not too much of a hot pick in the baking industry. Still, we definitely would have loved to try a slice of this green-colored beauty. Holiday pecan tassies were the jewels of every dessert table. Tiny, golden, and delicate, they looked like miniature pies kissed by sugar and tradition. The crusts were pressed into muffin tins by hand, filled with a glossy mixture of butter, brown sugar, and pecans that baked into caramel perfection. They cooled on wire racks, their fragrance filling kitchens with warmth that felt like December itself. Women brought them to bake sales, church suppers, and cookie swaps, where they disappeared before anyone could count how many they'd made. Each one held a perfect balance of crisp and chewy, rich enough to taste like indulgence, small enough to justify another. The tassies were made from the heart by hands that measured without spoons and baked with instinct. They represented the kind of craftsmanship that modern kitchens rarely see, the art of patience. For many, they were more than treats. They were holiday currency, traded and gifted with pride. Today, their memory lingers as a symbol of care, reminding us that sometimes the smallest desserts carry the biggest joy. Celery stuffed with pimento cheese was once the opening act of Thanksgiving, a crunchy, creamy promise of good things to come. Long before appetizers became elaborate spreads, this simple treat graced every holiday table. The recipe was pure genius, crisp celery sticks filled with a tangy mixture of shredded cheddar, chopped pimentos, and just enough mayonnaise to hold it all together. The result was cool, sharp, and savory, a perfect balance of texture and flavor. Guests would hover near the relish tray, talking and laughing as they nibbled, the sound of clinking plates and distant roasting turkey filling the background. Housewives loved the simplicity. It could be made hours ahead, arranged neatly on platters, and served with pride. In Southern homes especially, pimento cheese was a point of identity, each family claiming their own version as best. The celery gave it structure, the cheese gave it heart. As food culture modernized, this quiet classic was replaced by charcuterie boards and fancier hors d'oeuvres. But there was a kind of honesty in it, fresh, handmade, and perfectly nostalgic. Celery stuffed with pimento cheese was more than a snack. It was hospitality itself, bite-sized and smiling. Pineapple pudding cakes were also just as easy to make, and the perfect thing to freshen you up on a hot summer day. If you did not feel like pulling out all the stops and making a pudding and cake from the start, you could always use packaged products. Pillsbury sugar cake mixes and instant pudding mixes achieved almost the same effect, really. It makes sense why this cake lasted a lot longer than others, because when a recipe is easy to make with grocery mart substitutes instead of proper ingredients, the crowds are going to love it. After all, it makes the dish really accessible to everybody. When people think of easy to buy and make cakes, they think of your typical chocolate cake. Pineapple pudding cakes, also yellow cakes, were mixed with pineapple juice and cream cheese vanilla fillings. Definitely one of the most revitalizing vintage cakes that we are sad to see gone. Buttered rum bread pudding was comfort-baked golden. Thick cubes of bread soaked in custard and drenched with buttery rum sauce turned humble leftovers into rich celebration. It was a dessert that spoke of warmth, one that made winter feel softer. The rum added just enough spirit to transform sweetness into sophistication. It baked slowly, the edges crisping while the center stayed tender and fragrant. Steam rose as the sauce was poured over the top, glossy, amber, and irresistible. Every bite balanced decadence and thrift, reminding eaters that old bread could still make magic. Families made it after holidays, turning remnants into something worthy of the main event. It was often served warm, a scoop of melting cream on top making it heavenly. Buttered rum bread pudding was a bridge between comfort and luxury, the perfect embodiment of home kitchens in the 1970s. It was food that asked for no decoration, just quiet appreciation. The last bite lingered, heavy with sweetness and light with memory. Browned butter carrots with dill were sunshine on a winter table, a dish that brought a touch of color to the gray days between holidays. Fresh carrots were peeled, sliced, and boiled until tender, their natural sweetness just beginning to show. Then came the magic. The butter left to brown in a skillet until nutty and fragrant, releasing a smell that felt both warm and indulgent. The carrots were tossed in the bubbling butter, shimmering as they took on that deep golden hue. A scattering of dill finished the dish, green flecks bright against the orange glaze. The taste was balanced and pure, sweet from the carrots, rich from the butter, and lightly herbal from the dill. It was simple enough for a weeknight, yet elegant enough for a Christmas spread. In 1950s kitchens, this dish was considered sophistication on a budget, proof that presentation mattered just as much as effort. Served steaming beside roasts and gravies, browned butter carrots with dill caught the light like jewels, small reminders that beauty could come from the simplest ingredients. Candied carrots with orange glaze were the sunshine of the Thanksgiving table, a dish that glowed as brightly as the spirit of the day itself. Slender carrots, peeled and sliced, were simmered gently with butter, brown sugar, and a splash of orange juice until tender and glossy. As the syrup reduced, it coated every piece in a golden sheen, the fragrance of citrus and caramel drifting through the kitchen. Housewives of the 1940s and 1950s adored this recipe, not just for its beauty, but for the optimism it brought to the table. It symbolized better days after years of rationing and scarcity. The vibrant orange mirrored the era's fascination with color, abundance, and cheer. Served in sparkling glass bowls or Pyrex dishes, the carrots caught the light like jewels, a touch of brightness among the earthy tones of the feast. Children loved their sweetness. Adults appreciated their elegance. They offered a reminder that simple ingredients could still create wonder. As tastes grew more complex, this humble side faded from modern menus. But in its time, Candied carrots with orange glaze represented hope, sweet, steady, and radiant, the kind of joy that came from turning the ordinary into something beautiful. Blackberry pies were a step in a different direction taste-wise than the rhubarbs and raspberry pies that usually dominated the 70s. People got tired of the typical fillings that came with most pies, and there was a growing love for blackberries and what they brought to the table. Especially in states like Florida, Arizona, California, and Texas, which have pretty high rates of blackberry picking. Fresh, ripe, juicy berries would be used to make the most delectable fillings you could think of. While the phase of blackberry pies was something that did not go further than states where a love for the fruit was already there, they still rocked. We would love to try an authentic pie from the 70s, especially one from the kitchen of a grandma with a blessed baking hand. Caramel apple trifle turned the season's best flavors into a showpiece. Cubes of buttery pound cake were layered with spiced apples, caramel pudding, and whipped cream. Each layer glistened in clear glass bowls, a celebration of color and comfort. It was elegant enough for dinner parties, yet simple enough for home kitchens. The smell alone, cinnamon, brown sugar, butter, drew everyone closer. Every bite was soft and rich, the sweetness deepened by a hint of tart fruit. Families made it for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and every occasion in between. In a decade known for convenience, this dessert managed to feel special without being complicated. It captured the heart of 1970s gatherings, where beauty met practicality and tradition met innovation. Caramel apple trifle reminded everyone that celebration did not need excess, only intention. Served chilled, it tasted like the warmth of a family gathered together, layered, imperfect, and endlessly good. Creamed carrots and peas were the quiet beauty of Christmas dinner, the kind of dish that filled the table with warmth without ever asking for attention. Fresh carrots were sliced thin, peas shelled or poured from a can, and both simmered gently in butter until soft enough to yield under a spoon. A splash of milk turned the mix silky, and a spoonful of flour thickened it into a smooth, glossy sauce that clung to every bite. The sweetness of the peas balanced the earthy calm of the carrots, the two melting together in soft harmony. The scent that rose from the pot was gentle and homely, sweet, buttery, and full of patience. It was the side that stood quietly beside grander dishes, yet no plate ever looked complete without it. Children loved its mildness, adults, its nostalgia. In the 1950s and 1960s, it was a staple of Christmas tables across the country, a simple sign of comfort and care. Creamed carrots and peas were food made with kindness, meant to soothe and steady, never to impress. It was the flavor of family, familiar, forgiving, and always enough. Molasses crinkle cookies were the scent of the season itself. Rolled in sugar before baking, they puffed and cracked into golden brown circles that sparkled like frost. The air filled with the smell of ginger, cinnamon, and dark molasses, cozy and deep. Each bite was chewy at the center, crisp at the edge, a perfect balance of texture and spice. They were simple to make, yet they carried the spirit of tradition. Families baked them in big batches, stacking them high in tins for neighbors and friends. The cracked tops looked like tiny maps of sweetness, proof that imperfection could still be beautiful. When warm, they almost tasted like gingerbread kissed by caramel. The cookies cooled on racks beside cups of cocoa, each one inviting another bite. In a decade obsessed with innovation, molasses crinkles held fast to the old ways. Sturdy, fragrant, and made to last. They were the kind of cookie that turned every kitchen into a story. Sweet potato soufflé was the dish that blurred the line between side and dessert. Mashed sweet potatoes were whipped until airy, blended with butter, eggs, and sugar, then topped with pecans or a crumble of brown sugar. It baked into a golden, fragrant cloud that smelled like comfort itself. This was Southern elegance, a holiday staple that felt indulgent yet familiar. At church potlucks and family dinners, it brought smiles before the first bite. The sweetness paired beautifully with the saltiness of the turkey, making it unforgettable. In many homes, it replaced pie altogether, the star of both dinner and dessert. Over the years, it's been overshadowed by marshmallow-topped versions, but the original soufflé remains unmatched. Sweet potato soufflé was more than food. It was love-baked light, the taste of home dressed up for celebration. Before we leave the South, let's talk about fried pies, which sort of blur the line between a fried pocket and a pie. Pie crusts that were fried and filled with various fruit or cream fillings became incredibly trendy in the South. Actually, most things battered and deep-fried tend to come from the South, so there really is no surprise here. Your mind might be thinking this would not work and that the flavors are too different, but it actually clicked. Folks from outside those parts of the USA also would pick these turnover-like pastries, enjoying the harmony of fruits and fried dough. Fried pies gave people a similar feeling to eating a chocolate donut, since sometimes they would be filled with chocolate. Currently, it is just a forgotten Southern legend. Sadly, since America moved on to healthier pies. Old-fashioned divinity candy shimmered like snow caught in sunlight. Whipped from egg whites, sugar syrup, and a whisper of vanilla, it demanded precision and patience. The process was an act of faith, beating, stirring, and waiting until the mixture turned cloud-like. In Southern kitchens, it was made by grandmothers who knew just when the weather was dry enough for it to set. Divinity was delicate but proud, its texture melting on the tongue like spun sweetness. Each piece was dropped by the spoonful onto wax paper, crowned with a single pecan. It filled candy tins and mason jars, shared between neighbors as tokens of affection. Its white, glossy peaks seemed almost too perfect to eat, yet they were gone in moments. Making it was as much tradition as recipe, a quiet measure of love passed down through generations. Today, few take the time to make divinity, but for those who remember, one bite recalls Christmas mornings, gentle voices, and sugar that seemed to hold light itself. Stuffed tomatoes with rice and herbs were the edible ornaments of Christmas platters, gleaming red against the muted tones of meat and gravy. The tomatoes were hollowed carefully, their insides saved for sauce or soup, then filled with a mixture of rice, onions, parsley, and olive oil. Some home cooks baked them until tender, their skins wrinkling into soft folds. Others chilled them, serving them cool and glossy for contrast against hot dishes. The scent that filled the kitchen was bright and green, herbs mingling with the natural sweetness of cooked tomato. Each bite was a burst of freshness amid the heaviness of the season, a balance between comfort and clarity. In the 1960s, when presentation ruled the table, these were a showpiece dish, their colors as joyful as their flavor. A tray of stuffed tomatoes looked like celebration itself, simple, honest, and full of charm. They were the taste of effort made visible, a small, colorful rebellion against the gray of winter plates. Stuffed tomatoes with rice and herbs reminded families that beauty and nourishment often came from the same humble kitchen. Ambrosia salad was heaven in a bowl for Southern families who believed every feast deserved something sweet. Oranges, pineapple, cherries, coconut, and marshmallows came together in creamy unity, a mix of color and joy. Served chilled, it offered a burst of freshness amid all the heavy dishes. For many, it was the first thing made and the last thing finished, a dish that symbolized abundance. Its name, ambrosia, food of the gods, fit perfectly. It wasn't about sophistication but sentiment. Every spoonful tasted of childhood, of porch gatherings and laughter echoing through warm kitchens. Ambrosia salad was passed between hands, not plates, because it was too pretty to portion out without admiration. Though it's disappeared from modern tables, it lives on in family memory, a dessert that carried both sweetness and nostalgia. Ambrosia salad was the heart's dessert, pure and simple. Mocha whip cakes were more so the next hot thing in 1978 and started out as a niche trend particular in French-American restaurants. Young adults, book readers, and the romanticizing cafe-going types would always order a slice with their coffee of the day. Gold does not stay hidden in the dumpster for too long most times, and for these whip cakes that was the case. Mocha whip cakes went mainstream when more magazines began featuring them in the breakfast sections as chic and classy breakfast for the modern working adult. Advertising can go a long way, especially when it is targeted at you with the intent of making you feel special, but eating this cake did feel special. In America, it was hard for coffee lovers to find a coffee chocolate cake that did it right, and this was it. You can imagine the grief they had when it stopped being served in the usual spots past the 70s. Holiday gingerbread trifle turned a colonial classic into 1970s decadence. Cubes of soft gingerbread layered with lemon curd and whipped cream created a dessert both old-fashioned and new. The spiced cake soaked up the citrus tang, each bite a mix of warmth and brightness. Served in tall glass bowls, it was a visual feast, golden, white, and amber layers gleaming like stained glass. Every spoonful carried the comfort of tradition with a playful twist of modern flavor. Families made it when they wanted something festive but fuss-free. Lemon kept the richness light, while whipped cream made it luxurious. It was the perfect ending to a heavy meal, airy but satisfying. The beauty of the dish lay in how it connected generations. Grandmothers recognized the spice, daughters admired the flair, and children simply wanted seconds. Some added crushed ginger snaps for crunch, others folded in candied orange peel for brightness, making every version personal yet familiar. It reflected the 70s spirit of reinvention, where creativity met comfort without pretense. The trifle bowl itself often became part of the family's tradition, brought out year after year, polished and proud. In every bite lived the heart of the 70s kitchen, inventive, resourceful, and joyfully proud of its own flavor. Which Thanksgiving dish reminds you of your grandparents? Comment your favorite, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories served warm.